Hello everybody, I'm Gary the Motham and welcome to what might be the biggest video on my channel so far. Today, I'll be unveiling the final map of my Dutch-inspired Pokemon region. The HUMESUM region! What are you talking about, the Humblo region? It's always been called the HUMESUM region. Don't be silly. Okay, fine, I did rename the Humblo region to the HUMESUM region. I never really liked Humblo as a name that much, and it was always meant to be a placeholder. Most of what you see in my older videos is subject to change, honestly. So, HUMESUM region it is. The HUMESUM region consists of 3 separate regions combined into one, and so its name is also a combination of these 3 regions' names. We have the Humilands region, the Medgium region, and the Summusburg region. They pull their names from combining the Latin words humilis, which means low, medius, meaning middle, and summus, meaning high, with their respective countries' names: the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And just like the Benelux in real life, their names are combined to form the region's name, HUMESUM, which also sounds like home and the Latin word sum, meaning I am. So, home I am. It fits with the themes of exploration and freedom I'm going for, and it's a lot of fun to say. HUMESUM, 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 ha ha. I have been showing you all small snippets of the HUMESUM region's map throughout my many videos. Sneak peeks of early sketches and plans. But after a couple months, I think, I'm finally ready to show you all the final art of the region and discuss it in excruciating detail. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. Hallo allemaal, ik ben Gary de Motham en welkom terug in de HUMESUM regio. Geïnspireerd op de lage landen, Nederland, Luxemburg en mijn thuisland, België. So, what do you think? I spent 4 months on this project, working on this massive Pokemon map, on and off again. At least a couple hours every week I've been working on this. I'm not sure how long it really took, but I wouldn't be surprised if it took around 30 to 40 hours of actual work. But I am extremely proud of the finished product. Before we continue, keep in mind that my Pokemon Orange project is purely speculative and I'm not going to make a fan game about this. Not because I don't want to, but because I am literally one dude with the brain of a moth. I can't code! Now, if there's anyone who does want to give it a shot, I mean, go ahead, just tell me if you're doing it. Anywho, today I'll be going into detail on my design process, planning and drawing, as well as the layout of the region itself. And at the end of this video, I have a couple surprises waiting for you. Dus zet jezelf schrap, beste mensen, voor een onvergetelijk avontuur door de HUMESUM regio! When I came up with the idea of a Dutch-inspired region, I originally planned it to only be based on the Netherlands. However, there's no relationship between countries as tied to each other as the Benelux. Belgium, the Netherlands and Luxembourg, collectively known as the Lowlands, the Lage Landen, are tied together in history, culture and existence. But it's also equally divided in all of those aspects. It's divided in language, Dutch, French, Luxembourgian, and even Frisian and German. It's divided in religion, the Protestant North and the Catholic South. It's even been divided throughout history by the Spanish, the Austrians, the French and the Germans. In every way possible, the Benelux is united yet divided. And this unique relationship is so incredibly important that I had to include it in my Pokemon region. When I started with the plans of this region, I first sketched out the different divisions of the Benelux: Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. And throughout the process, I tried to keep them somewhat balanced with each other, though admittedly that didn't pan out as I expected, since Summusburg is definitely the least dense of this trio. During the planning phase, I did a lot of research into important landmarks, biomes, cities, etc., and made a couple early layout sketches with the important cities I had planned. I even sketched out a simple route map in the style of old games so I could get a grasp of the game's progression, which is very important if you want to design a region's layout as well. This was the first map of the HUMESUM region that I showed off. It's just some basic colors to represent planned biomes and areas, and it was still very close to the real Benelux region. It's also still in all of my Pokédex entries as the area map. It would later change a lot though, as you saw, but this was my very first real version of the map. After the planning phase was mostly concluded, I could start sketching an actual map. Keep in mind though, while sketching I still changed many plans I had, and I added a lot of things that I hadn't planned. So my planning phase really never ended while drawing. I'm still changing plans while writing this, which is not making my job easier on this video. I started off with sketching the landmass itself, in the basic shape of the Benelux, obviously. Then I started off with the sketches of the rivers. The Benelux is basically just the basin of the Rhine River, so this was very important in the creation of this map. And then I did the topography of the map. With this topography, I tried to keep in mind actual gameplay within the map itself, making little mazes, interesting areas, and fun to traverse valleys and hills. At least on a basic level. I didn't work it out extremely well. When this map was done, I showed it for my second sneak peek of the region. This really cool black and white map was something that I was very proud for at the time. It's pretty bare bones now, but I swear it was cool for the time. Before I continued sketching, I started actually drawing the biomes and the land, with basic colors of where the biomes were, as well as red or rocky walls inspired by the official Pokemon map of Paldea. This map in general was a heavy inspiration for my own map, as you may have noticed, and I tried to mimic it in many ways. Later I would finally start sketching out the landmarks in their correct places and shapes. Many of these landmarks were inspired by real places in the Benelux, or cultural aspects of the region. Let me tell you, there are a lot of windmills in this region. After all of that work sketching, I could finally start drawing and making the map pretty. I was so close to finishing this. I just had to color the landmarks, towns, draw the trees, do the shadows, textures, highlights, render, and then finally the clouds and the pretty stuff. Okay, that sounds like a lot actually. And it was, but compared to the planning and sketching, it was pretty bearable. After 40 hours of hard, grueling work, and 4 months of planning, sketching, and drawing, this beast of a map was finally done. After all of that work, as well as the work I had to do to even make this video, don't you guys think I deserve a little reward? A like and subscribe maybe? For me? Please? Anywho, I think it's time to finally discuss the actual map, shall we? I'm about to go over every major landmark, city and area in the HUMESUM region, which is gonna take a long while. So get some snacks or fall asleep to this video, I don't care. Just strap in, because this video is going to be long. But before we get into it, I want to call attention to this region's most defining aspect: the wall. This Benelux-inspired region is completely surrounded by massive cliffs and waterfalls that surround it on all sides and reach far into the sky. This obviously isn't something you'll find in the real Netherlands, of course. I mean, they're flatter and smoother than a Twitter user's brain, but it fits perfectly within the lore and inspirations. It's based on the whole premise of the lowlands. They're called that because of how low these lands are. Surprise! Famously, the Netherlands is 60% below sea level. 50% sea, 50% wheat, after all. The only thing that keeps the nation from sinking are the wall-like dikes that keep out the water. And flooding is a consistent threat and fear for the nation and its people. So these massive barriers that trap people within its confines are very fitting and also extremely important to the identity of the region. Let's start off with the northern provinces of HUMESUM, the Humilands region. This part is obviously based on the Netherlands and will serve as both the very beginning and the very end of the game. This is where you find your starting town, Sluis. This small little town is based on an actual town that exists in the north of North Holland, Oudeslaas. Both get their names from their most important landmark, the sluice in the middle of the village. It holds the water from the river that runs through this village. Sluices are a common and important thing in the Netherlands, and an important part in the complex structure of dams and dikes which allows this lowland to sadly exist. To the north of Sluis is a long dike that dams off the large Kooi Lake from the rest of the sea. It connects several smaller islands inspired by the Waddeneilanden, and on the biggest island is a lighthouse. This island is inspired by Texel, which is also the biggest of the Waddeneilanden in general. I went on vacation there once. It was pretty fun. Going south and following the river past some simple rolling fields with streams, creeks and windmills called molenfields, we arrive in the quaint town of Lely Lake, a small village that's very spread out across the shore and has many lakes and ponds. It is inspired by Zaanse, a beautiful town in the north of Amsterdam, which is iconic for its lakes, architecture and windmills. This is a region of Zaanstad, with many historical buildings and monuments, such as the aforementioned windmills. Lely Lake's most defining landmark would be the 7 differently colored mills dotted throughout the area. The most iconic images of the Netherlands are all related to windmills and flowers. So, when you cross the bridge that reaches over the river we had been following, you pass through a beautiful field of tulips, referred to as Tulip Dale. Here you would be able to find many flower-based Pokémon such as Flabébé or Roserades, as well as a lot of bug types such as Gooby and our very first boss Pokémon, Humigrate. I've told you about the boss Pokémon before, but they're basically my equivalent to totems and titans. This bug type boss is Humigrate. But you won't stay here for long, because we are about to enter the most important city in the entire region. Welcome to Rosendam. This city's inspiration should be obvious. It's the ever-iconic Amsterdam, often nicknamed the City of Sin because of its expensive red light district, and being the symbol of liberty and freedom in Europe. Liberals!
How sinful.
That's why it's called Rosendam. Roses are the flowers most related to romance and lust, and many of the cities in this region will have a flower motif going for them. Don't worry, however, Rosendam's red light district won't be anything mature or PG rated. Instead, this district would be an intense district for Pokémon battles, with many arenas and shops to train and strengthen your Pokémon. This is basically a hub for all the competitive nerds out there, with a battle resort style area as well. You can also find many beautiful landmarks from Amsterdam in the city, such as art museums inspired by the Van Gogh Museum in the Netherlands. Here you could even see the official Van Gogh Pokémon collab art from our real world, which I think would be so cool. Moving on from Rosendam, this is where your journey really starts, as the region opens up for you to explore. To the west is another massive flower garden called Orient Park. This one is even bigger and more beautiful than the one we had already seen. And it's inspired by the real-life Keukenhof, nicknamed the Garden of Europe. Continuing from this garden, you arrive in the city Courthof, inspired by The Hague. It's a beautiful coastal city with 4 oppressing skyscrapers, where the governing body of the HUMESUM region is located. But besides that is also a fun Ferris wheel, and to the east you can enter yet another beautiful garden. Palace Court is its name, and this one is inspired by Japan, with cherry blossoms and architecture that reminds you of the Johto region. The Palace Court is inspired by the real Klingendale Park in The Hague. And in the center of the city is an old palace, where you can find your very first gym leader. The fairy type gym leader. But that's for another video. If you had instead gone to the south of Rosendam through Groenfields, you would enter the city of Lavendam, inspired by Rotterdam. It is a very modern, to even futuristic city, with clean green skyscrapers and a bustling dockyards. To pass the river that divides the northern provinces with the southern provinces, there are 2 bridges, one futuristic one and the other old and classic, a tower bridge. This city has a dichotomy between modern and traditional, as the southern part of Lavendam is much more old and classic. In Lavendam, you would also be able to find another gym leader, the flying type gym leader. Connected to this metropolitan area would be Fair Park, a giant amusement park themed after fairy type Pokemon and inspired by the Dutch Efteling, the 3rd biggest theme park in all of Europe. I have a lot of fun memories on this place, and I just had to include the Fairy Forest attractions in it too, where you would face your first evil team admin, the Dark type leader. Just like in Paldea, HUMESUM will have 5 type specialist admins that lead the evil team. Even further from that is a rugged rocky area with many holes and giant stone walls. This will be the HUMESUM region's safari zone. The Benelux has many large and popular zoos, like the Zoo of Antwerp, Paradise, Blankendale, etc. So I had to include a safari zone somewhere in this region. But returning to Rosendam, if instead you went to the east of the city, you would pass a few scattered buildings in Groenfields. And from here, you can go a couple ways. To your north, there's a marshy area in the Kooi Lake. This place is inspired by Flevoland, a brand new province in the Netherlands, which they dried up from the IJsselmeer in 1986, using a complex structure of dikes. The south of the swampy area is more habitable and populated by a few houses, with many small canals you need to cross with bridges. This area is inspired by the polders, a type of man-made terrain unique to the Netherlands. But in the north you can find a more fantastical muddy swamp, called New Marsh, because it's a marsh and it's new. Yeah. New Marsh has a dense forest and many hard-to-navigate paths. To the south of this area you can find Orchidrecht, inspired by the Dutch city of Utrecht. It was once the center of the Netherlands, until it was surpassed by Amsterdam in the Middle Ages. This town would be much more quaint and traditional than Rosendam, serving as kind of a light version, with canal roads, Renaissance architecture, and in the center a beautiful tower. There are 2 exits from Orchidrecht. The south road leads to a beautiful field of sunflowers, while the northern one leads to a dry desert, called the Salt Dunes. A desert in the Netherlands? How queer! I must acquire about this with the YouTuber post haste. And to that I say, I guess we're doing deserts now. It's inspired by Kortwijkerzand and similar inland dune areas in the Netherlands. Well, these aren't real deserts, just inland dune areas created after the Ice Age. They're still very desert-like. That's why this biome would still have a few trees and shrubs. In lore, however, this was once a watery area until the dike program accidentally flushed all the water from this area and turned it into a drained barren sea, with the remnant of an old shipwreck being unearthed, or unseathed. To the east of this desert you can find a rocky area, which once served as a mining area. This is also where you can find the first of 3 castle ruins. Important hints to the past of this region. But after finally escaping this desolate and arid area, you reach the Frisian territories to the north, with the small town of Lotusslot being the first settlement you'd have come across in a while. It's a small town inspired by Giethoorn, another small Dutch town. Lotusslot would resemble its counterpart closely, with cottagecore houses, canals as roads, and being in a relatively forested area. This town would feel like heaven compared to the harsh dunes and rugged rocks you just passed. The rest of this Frisian area is relatively simple. A large open field called the Dike Hills, with rolling hills where you can run around to your heart's content. The most notable thing here are the oil fields you can explore in Benzen Basin, where you can come across many poison and electric type Pokemon, as well as the electric type evil team leader. There's also some muddy and shallow beaches you can find here, inspired by the Waddenzee, an area that's characterized by its tidal mudflats. So I thought it would be interesting if this area had different water levels depending on the time of day, perhaps? The final city in the entire game that you would come across is Wildheim. This city is based on the capital of Friesland, Leeuwarden. Now, the entire province of Friesland has been turned into a cozy, snowy tundra, which isn't how Friesland looks like. It's instead is based on the name, Friesland. It's stupid, I know. But I wanted some more climatological variation within this characteristically temperate region. Why do I write my script with such difficult words, man? Something many people probably don't know is that the Frisians are a completely different people than the Dutch, with a separate culture and a separate language. It looks a lot like Dutch, but not quite, which is why Wildheim resembles the real Leeuwarden, but also not quite. It is instead a snowy winterscape with many old ruins. And while many Frisians consider themselves Dutch more so than Frisian, I still felt it was appropriate to reference this often forgotten Dutch minority. Fun fact, by the way, the Frisians were the first settlers of the Netherlands who began constructing dikes. So the ice-type gym leader you would find here would definitely have diking as his ace. It fits perfectly. Alright, great news everybody. We're a third of the way through the region and only at page 5 of the scripts. Dear God, this video is gonna take so long. Time for the central provinces. These are inspired by the southern Netherlands as well as Flanders. This is the Medgium region. Our first point of interest when crossing the bridges of Lavendam are the large carbon mines you can enter. When Belgium was a part of the Netherlands, the south was a lot more industrial and mining extensive area of the two, which the Dutch relied on, exploited, for their trades. In this area you would find a lot of gem-based Pokemon, as Belgium, despite having very little gem mines itself, is still the third largest exporters of diamonds in the world. About 84% of the world's rough diamonds pass through Antwerp, making it the diamond capital of the world. But between you and I, that's the only thing shining in that city. Ooh boy. These mines are also where you can find the rock-type boss Pokemon. which is a Pokemon I still have to reveal. So be patient. And subscribe if you don't want to miss that. To the west of the mines, you can find a wetlands area, once again inspired by polders. But this time, those in the Dutch province of Zeeland. These are much more scattered and have a huge maze of boardwalks you can traverse to find items and catch Pokemon. There's also a huge water gate here that protects Lavendam from floods. This is ripped from the real-life Maaslandkering, a giant water gate that protects the mouth of the Maas River as well as the city of Rotterdam from water surges. There's also, on this island here, a whole lot of greenhouses. The Netherlands is, despite its small size and small population, still one of the biggest agricultural exporters in the world, even rivaling nations like the USA. And most of their farms are greenhouses. A kilogram of tomato seeds from the Netherlands costs more than a kilogram of gold. Gold! And these Dutch greenhouses are 8 times more efficient than any other farm in the world. This agricultural might is also why to the east of the mines you can find a large farming area dubbed the Wheat Meadows. Just like the Netherlands, Belgium is also a massive exporter of agriculture. Flanders specifically makes up to 80% of Belgian agricultural exports. And I speak from experience when I say that we have a lot of fields and crops. It's either that or some random village named Poopenstein. In this agricultural area there are 2 towns, the biggest of which is Pollenplas. Loosely based on the Dutch city of Maastricht, Pollenplas doesn't really resemble a city. It's instead a rustic farming village that resembles older farmer communities. The only similarities they have are the fact that they are both located on a river. It's a sparsely built town with small bridges to cross this river. It's a bread bridge, one could say. Reference. Anywho, the second evil team leader, a grass-type specialist, can also be found here. And they're certainly up to some topical shenanigans. The other more interesting town, however, is Wordrecht. This town is based on, not a town actually, but more so an open-air museum, Bokrijk. Bokrijk is a town in Belgium that still looks and works like a small farmer's village from the Middle Ages. You can go visit it and experience life as it was in the old days. I went there as a kid once with school and it was so much fun. As a kid, I yearned for the fields. The southern part of this area, Poke Pastures, has many fences and fields you can traverse, which serves as a kind of maze. Here you would be able to find Pokemon like Miltank and Mudspray, as well as Oinkoink from one of my recent videos. If you follow this path, you arrive in the town of Hilheide. This town isn't really based on a specific town in general, but more so it resembled a lot of Flemish and Dutch towns, in architecture and layout. The Netherlands, and especially Flanders, are some of the most densely built and populated areas in Europe and the world. That's why this region has such an abundance of cities and towns. The most in the series, definitely. And we're far from done with those, as Hilheide only serves as the main entrance into the big city trifecta of Peteldonk, Lilywine, and Bruquet. While none of these cities individually are as big as, say, Lumio City or Mesagoza or even Castilia City, together they become the biggest metropolitan area in all of Pokemon. Just like how Flanders and the Netherlands are often seen as just one big city or town, let's be honest. The first city here is Lilywine, based on Leuven. This city has a lot of beautiful and intricate architecture, Gothic, Baroque and Renaissance style, with its biggest landmarks being the beautiful town hall, the Pride of Leuven. The northern part of the city area is Peteldonk, based on the iconic and sort of beloved Antwerp. Just behind Rotterdam, Antwerp is the biggest dockyard in all of Europe. and easily in the top 20 of the world. Though obviously the port of Antwerp is referenced in Paddledonk, with containers and cranes and even the fighting type gym leader. But other than its bustling port and gritty streets, you can also enter its beautiful station, which allows you to take the train to many other major cities, and also the possible return of the battle train? Who knows? For the final and most important city of these three, it's Bruges, based on not only the capital of Belgium, but all of Europe, Brussels. The name Bruges comes from the word bouquet. As I said, many of these towns have flower references in their name, and a bouquet is basically a collection of many different flowers together. It follows the themes I'm going for with this region very well. Brussels is also one of the most diverse cities in the world, and sometimes nicknamed the diversity capital of Europe, just like how a bouquet can be made up of many diverse flowers. Bruges also has many of Brussels' iconic landmarks, but Manneke Pis has been censored. I'm sorry guys. A statue of a child peeing is a bit too crass for Pokemon. So instead he's been changed into a Mosaurus. You can also find an impressive museum full of fossil Pokemon. Here you would be able to find a bunch of fossils of old Pokemon of mine like Colosaurus. This is a reference to Brussels' Royal Museum of Natural Sciences, where you can find a whole lot of skeletons of Iguanodon bernissartensis, found in the Belgian city of Bernissart. Colosaurus is an old Pokemon of mine that I've made a couple of videos back, so if you're interested and want more information about it, go check it out. The most fantastical of these landmarks is the one based on the Atomium, or in this case, the Castformium. I took inspiration from Castform for this monument, and maybe you can unlock a new form of Castform here, with new Castform forms? The Castformium can also serve as the gym for this city's normal type gym leader. This entire city will serve as an important hub on your Pokemon journey. You can find a lot of stores for items, training areas, Pokemon traders, cultural hubs, etc. So you're likely to return often to this place. Moving on further west, we enter a beautiful autumnal forest that's eternally been plunged in a fall aesthetic with some strange fairy powers. Welcome to the Elfol Forest. Fairy-type Pokemon run rampant here, so be aware of any fake pranks. In the middle of this forest is another castle ruin. This one is based on the Gravensteen ruins in Ghent. And as I said, these forts were very important to the history of the HUMESUM region. But that will need to be explained in another video. This one is already way longer than it should be. When you finally escape the dense forest, you get to the city of Krisendoen, a coastal city famous for its beaches. It's based on Oostende and Brugge, two popular beach cities in Belgium. Flanders and the north of France have a large dune network, which you can find referenced here, as well as another gym leader to battle against, a water-type specialist. Before we continue, this next part is going to be a little more real and serious. Heading southwest through the Zephyr Grasslands or Zephyr Beach, you arrive in probably the darkest area in any Pokemon game. Welcome to the Scarred Wastelands. This area bears the scars of war, as here you can find the remains of trenches, bunkers, and even old artillery and tanks. You can see the scars caused by this catastrophic event very clearly. However, nature is healing, and the ruins of this terrible memory are slowly getting overgrown and covered up by trees and vines. This place is based on the events of World War I and the Battle of Ypres. During the war, the Belgians held a fierce resistance against the German invaders, holding onto a small strip of land, the Oosthoek, with the Battle of Ypres being one of, if not the deadliest battles in all of history. During the 5 battles held for the city, over 1 million people lost their lives. The 3rd Battle of Ypres was especially devastating, with an estimation of 400,000 to even 900,000 casualties. The fact that the estimations are this broad should tell you enough about the brutality of this battle. This battle is also infamous for the use of chemical weapons on a mass scale, which is one of the leading causes to this enormously high amount of casualties. That's not all though. To the south of this scar, you can find a massive war graveyard, the Garden of Memories, based on 10's, the largest war graveyard in the world. 12,000 soldiers have been buried in this graveyard. It would be a little bit less in my depiction of the Garden of Memories. It would still be a rather somber and quiet place. I know that these two areas are very likely too dark for Pokemon to actually do something with, but I felt that this part of Belgian history is so extremely important that not referencing it in some way would just be insulting. Maybe it shouldn't be referenced as blatantly as I have done here, and perhaps it would work better with a more subtlety. But I'm not just making a Pokemon region here, I'm also secretly teaching all of you about history and culture. I won't apologize. And I felt that these two places were very important to include in my region. I hope to one day be able to visit these sites myself, since I've not yet been able to go there, and I really want to, out of interest and respect for these dark times. Anywho, the Garden of Memories also is the location of our next Pokéboss, the Ghost-type Sorroway. In my Halloween special, I told you all about its lore, and how it's actually a fallen soul that's been forgotten. If you go and watch that video, there's a little ghost story that hints at the true origin of this Pokemon. Alright, we're only on page 7 and already at the southern provinces of the Summusburg region. Okay, final stretch. The southern provinces should go relatively quickly, as while they're probably the biggest area, they're also the sparsest. When you enter this province, the first thing you'll encounter is this massive and dense oakwood forest. It is inspired by the real Ardennes forest in the south of Belgium. A large foresty and quote-unquote mountainous terrain. Hidden throughout this forest are a few ruins and landmarks, such as a waterfall or ponds or mysterious areas and rocks. The first place you'll likely come across is Plazelia, a town loosely based on the city of Charleroi in the Walloons region. Plazelia also takes inspiration from Paldea's Massagosa, as it has slightly more Spanish architecture, and the buildings are all surrounding a town square with the same symbol you can find in Massagosa. Belgium and the Netherlands used to be under Spanish rule for quite a while. When the Netherlands broke free and gained independence, the southern Netherlands, also known as Belgium, stayed under Spanish rule until the Austrians took them over many years later. So I felt it was appropriate to reference Paldea's pretty heavy impact on this region, since the Spanish didn't just colonize the Americas, but also the Benelux. This beautiful town, however, boasts a dark secret, because to the south of it lies a dark, haunted forest with pale trees and an ominous fog. Deep inside of the smogged timber, you can find an eerie and abandoned factory as well. If you make it that far, this factory is a very important stop on your journey, as both the ground-type evil team leader and the steel-type Pokéboss can both be found here. Back to the Hoogwood Forest, however, there is a second more important town. It even has a gym leader to face. This is Viridian, a Kalos-inspired town based on Liège. It's inspired by Kalos towns and architecture,
such as from Santaloon City, with its landmark being a replica of the Lumio City Tower. Just like Plazalia, Verdali is only loosely inspired by its city of origin. However, it also takes extra inspiration from Waterloo, which isn't very close to Liège, but I thought it would be interesting nonetheless. Verdali also has a very fancy restaurant, where you can face yet another gym leader, a fire-type chef. Across the river is a high-up area, devoid of any trees. Instead, it only has shrubs and grasses, with boardwalk paths. These are the high fence, a biome type you can find in Belgium. At the end of this boardwalk path is one of those ruinous towers that you can find all over Paldea. They're also found in the HUMESUM region too. The Paldean king probably built all of these long ago. If you follow the river upstream, you'll come across a little camping site with trailers. Hooghoed Camp. The Ardennes are a popular vacation spot to travel to for Belgians and the Dutch people, and a very common Dutch stereotypes here in Flanders is the Dutch guy with his camper, basically a trailer, going on vacation here in the Ardennes. So here's a friendly little jab at that. Further upstream, we come upon a large mountainous area with sparse trees. The Ardeaux Plateau. Now, the Benelux doesn't really have mountains. I took some creative liberties with this area to make the region a little bit more interesting. However, that's not to say there's no inspiration here. The tall, snowy mountain known as Mount Zevenhoe is based on Signal de Vautrange, the highest point in the Benelux. A whopping 694 meters tall. Yeah, it's called the Lowlands for a reason. In the Ardeaux Valley, you can traverse a vast cave network inspired by the Caves of Han, which would serve as a sort of cave-like dungeon you see in the old games. Also, in this mountainous area up top, you can find the third and final castle ruin in the HUMESUM region. Ruins of fortresses and castles are very prevalent in the Low Countries. When I went on vacation to Luxembourg a few years back, I visited one of these ruins. It was super interesting. Our final destination on the mainland is a hidden cove, separated from the rest of the region. This area is based on the country of Luxembourg. Not to be confused with the Belgian province of Luxembourg, which is funnily enough a lot bigger than Luxembourg, the country, not the province. It is one of the oddest nations in the world, honestly. They have a completely unique language, which is basically a mix between German and French, and a little bit of Dutch too. They are a tiny nation locked between two former great powers, and one of only two Holy Roman Empire kingdoms to survive to the modern day. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense that these guys still exist. It's such a weird place. So I ran with that. The forest here is odd and vibrant, with strange colored trees and saturated colors. It resembles a typical fairy forest that you see in media. Like for example Balanlea from the Glimwood Tangle in Geller. But the strangest part is the town of Stuhldorp, a medium-sized town where all the houses are giant mushrooms. And in the middle of this mushroomy place, there is a palace, again made of mushrooms, where you can find the psychic-type gym leader. This town is very much inspired by the Smurfs. They are Belgian icons, created by a French Belgian from Wallonia. I thought it would be super interesting to have a little mushroom village in a Pokemon game. And it ties into... Oh wait, I can't tell you that just yet. That's one of my surprises. Oh thank god, we are finally done. Wait, what do you mean the northwest of the region? There's nothing there. It's just all water. Oh no. No! No! Okay, let's make this quick. Because I'm tired. Well, actually, before we get into this, I have to tell you all about a very important feature that will be returning in my speculative Gen 10 games. Diving! You can now finally dive deep beneath the ocean and explore the bottom of the sea with your Pokemon. I was honestly kind of disappointed when Scarlet and Violet didn't include diving, though I do understand why. But still, regardless, I feel like it would have been amazing. Just think back to Pokemon Snap and how cool that underwater section was. I understand that's a lot of work for Game Freak, and I don't expect them to ever do that, which is fair, but this is my hypothetical Pokemon games, dang it! I do what I want! Okay, now let's make this quick. There are some small sandbank islands with a shallow shore, surrounded by coral reefs inspired by the Dutch islands in the Caribbean, such as Curaçao and Bonaire, overseas territories of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. In this reef you can find a sunken ship, important to the lore and history of the region, and based on the many expeditions of trade ships that the Netherlands is famous for. And also the Flying Dutchman. They have a long history of sailing the seas, if you couldn't tell. Furthermore, not far from this beautiful reef is a bleached one, where you can find Galarian Corsola. This is a dead reef because right above it is a giant floating island of trash, based on the Pacific Trash Patch. They're not really related on the Netherlands, really, but I just wanted to have a little bit more spice for the sea, you know. To the east of this garbage island is a sunken city, inspired by Atlantis, and also the constant threat of floods in the Netherlands. Once again, important lore here. Pay attention, theorists. There's also an icy sea area with icebergs and a few islands. I thought having these would be fun to explore. Again, no real reason for them to be here in the Netherlands. Next up is a giant field of windmills. Not the cool Dutch kind, but the slightly less cool energy kind. There's a whole lot of these off the coast of the Benelux, and I thought the contrast between these modern windmills and the old ones would be pretty interesting. Also, soaring between these with Furret, for example, would be a lot of fun. All the way to the north, there's an oil platform. The Netherlands is one of Europe's most oil-rich nations, and while they don't dig that much for it, they do have a lot of oil rigs offshore. And here you can find the last evil team leader, a poison-type expert. And lastly, in the middle of the sea is a deep blue hole that leads to the deepest part of the ocean. What lies within it? Treasures? The final dragon-type Pokéboss? Who can say? That remains a mystery for now. So there you have it. The entire HUMESUM region explained. Here's some extra maps of provinces, subregions, cities. Remember, the names of these cities are all subject to change. As a Dutch person myself, I know how to pronounce these town names, but I need your input to help me make these names more approachable to English people. Your help is greatly appreciated. I would also like some feedback on the name of the HUMESUM region itself. If you have any ideas for alternate names, or suggestions on how to make these names more pronounceable, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much. Before we end this video, I have a few more surprises in store. I've teased it already, but I drew a brand new Pokemon for this special occasion, with a fun new gimmick too. I always liked the idea of having a Pokemon that has a super low spawn rate, but can be found on almost every route in the game. And before I made this region, I had the Elfie region, in which I had exactly that kind of Pokemon. Dynome, Kaboomter and Anom. They were little mushroom guys based on gnomes and atoms, and I really liked the idea of them. So I stole the idea from myself and remade these designs with a brand new inspiration. The Smurfs! Sadly, these guys are not the most respected franchise since Sony smurfed all over them, but to many Belgians such as myself, it was my childhood. The old Smurfs comics and cartoons smurf very iconic, and these little blue men likely smurf to one of Belgium's most iconic characters.
So I'm smurfing a little mushroom Pokemon smurfed on gnomes, mushrooms, and the Smurfs. I'm starting off with a silly shape for its main body, before giving it an even sillier face. A big nose reminiscent of many French and Wallonian comics, like the Smurfs or Asterix and Obelix. That new movie's looking very good, by the way. It has cute little beady eyes to make him look a bit stupid. Those who watch my videos regularly know that stupid little guys is very Gary-coded. I tried to make his body resemble the stem of a mushroom, with the different parts of a mushroom stem present, but I had to make a few omissions, like the stem's ring. It's got silly little noodle arms, inspired by Mime Jr., my favorite baby Pokemon. His mushroom head will look like the Smurf's cap, or a hat in general. These hats were inspired by the Viridian cap, worn by older civilizations in Anatolia and Eastern Europe. This cap was also known as the Liberty Cap, though more information about Shrum's mushroom cap later. Midway through drawing, I changed the angle up completely, to have the little Shrum look up, to make him look so small and cute. This guy also reminds me a little of other little guys like Pikmin. I can imagine a whole group of these guys running around all cute and clumsily in their hidden village, living their best lives in peace. During coloring, I gave him a red cap and nose, with red little cheeks to resemble the iconic fly agaric. This is also the mushroom most often depicted with gnomes. Gnomes, or the Dutch word for them, kabouters, play a big part in its origin too. Kabouters are a mythological creature found all over Western European folklore, including the lowlands, where some particularly notable gnome figures can be found, such as, of course, the Smurfs, but also Plop, another childhood classic of mine.
La 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 la, sing a happy song. La 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 la, shroom your whole day long.
Shrum, from mushroom and shroomf, the French name for the Smurfs.
Shrum, a stool Pokemon, a poison fairy type. Deep in the forest of the southern provinces, it is said you can find a village full of Shrum. They venture out and can be found all over the region, hiding from people and Pokemon. Some people say that Shrum will sneak into your house and help you to do your chores. If you disrespect it, Shrum will leave or even prank you. They travel together with Bombardier. It has the ability Run Away.
I love this little guy so much. He's so cute and silly. But there's more to him than meets the eye. Shrum has a whopping 25 different forms. Here they all are. And the forms that your Shrum takes is based on their personality. Just like the real Smurfs, who are all characterized by their singular personality type, for example, Clumsy Smurf, Handy Smurf, and Brainy Smurf, Shrum will be based on whatever personality your Pokemon have. In order, we have Mild Shrum, Quiet Shrum, Jolly Shrum, Docile Shrum, Sassy Shrum, Careful Shrum, Adamant Shrum, Brave Shrum, Hardy Shrum, Bashful Shrum, Hasty Shrum, Rash Shrum, Bold Shrum, Modest Shrum, Serious Shrum, Lonely Shrum, Naive Shrum, Lax Shrum, Relaxed Shrum, Timid Shrum, Gentle Shrum, Quirky Shrum, Naughty Shrum, Calm Shrum, and Impish Shrum. I think I just shroomed myself. To simplify, personalities in Pokemon tend to boost one stat and lower the other, so every Shrum would have a different stat spread, with their boosted stat being a little higher and their nerfed stat a little lower. I designed Shrum as a very important way to encourage exploration, as in an open world game like Scarlet and Violet, you would be able to find exactly 100 Shrum all across the region. When you capture or defeat one of these Shrum, they'll drop a Shrum Spore. You'd need 100 Shrum Spore to evolve your Shrum into...
You thought I was gonna reveal the evolution, didn't you? You fool! I'll be revealing that some other day. I don't know when, honestly. I was gonna do a part 2, but then I did all the gyms in this video too, and I don't know when now. But I didn't have time to finish Shrum's evolution yet. So, some other day, sorry. I have one more thing to show you all. I've been working hard on not just this map, but also I made some logos for this project. And an official title to Pokemon Orange. Here are the titles for Pokemon Speculative Generation 10. May I have a round of applause for Pokemon West and Pokemon East. I have a confession to make. You may remember I had already made a Pokemon region before this one, the Elfie region, based on Germany. And what I haven't told you all yet about this predecessor is that this game was also called Pokemon West and East. This was obviously because of West versus East Germany from the Cold War, but I feel like the titles fit just as well, if not better, with my Benelux region. The Netherlands were a major part of the Age of Exploration, as they had one of the strongest and largest trade fleets in the entire world at one point. Pokemon West and East is all about exploration and freedom as it seems, befitting of the Netherlands. They're all about liberty and freedom anyways. In Dutch we also have a saying, Oost-West, thuis best. It translates to East or West, home is best, which goes very well with the themes I have planned for the region. And I want exploration and home to be a big part of this Pokemon region. The logos have this old map aesthetic. I thought it fit the theme of exploration, but also Belgium and the Netherlands are extremely important to cartography. Gerardus Mercator, the inventor of the Mercator projection, which is the most popular map projection to this day, was from Flanders. And Willem Janszoon Blauw, a Dutch cartographer, made one of the largest and most important atlases ever. Finally, these logos have a little secret hidden in them that may or may not be referencing the legendary Pokemon of the HUMESUM region. But that's for you all to speculate. Let me know in the comments what you think these legendaries could be based on. Thank you everyone so much for watching this enormous video. And a happy new year to everyone. It's a shame I didn't get to make a dedicated Christmas video, but alas, maybe next year. I'd like to remind you all that submissions for Pokemon are still open for only a couple of days. New Year's Eve is the deadline, so if you want to submit your own Fakemon art, which I will showcase in a video, check out the Google forms in the description. By the time of recording this, I've already gotten 15 submissions, and they're all amazing. I can't wait to showcase them all. You're all so talented. Anywho, I'm so glad all of you took so much time out of your days to watch this stupid little video. This video took me so long to make, and I'll see if I can upload a higher resolution image of the region itself, because this video is really not doing it any justice. If you have any more ideas for names for cities or to improve the name of the region, please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And have another wonderful day. I've been Gary the Muffin. Gotta catch me later.